All right, for this fly, we're going to tie a CDC Pale Morning Dun. So it's going to be a CDC PMD, and it's called a CDC because we're going to use some CDC puffs for basically the wing of the fly. This is a smaller fly, so this is a size 18 standard dry fly hook, and so this one requires a little bit of focus when you're tying because you don't have as much room to work with. So to start off with, I'm going to use my thread, using some pale yellow thread. I'm going to wrap, get my base, get back here to the back, snip that off. The very first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my PMD dubbing here, and I'm just going to take just a tiny pinch of it, and not much at all. And I'm going to take that pinch and I'm going to dub that onto the thread. You'll see there's not much. I'm just going to push that down, right down to the thread like that, or right down to the hook like that. I'm going to wrap it. Should be about 2 wraps. And I'll rest my wrap right in front of it. Now that's not much, but what that does is that's going to help. That little tuft of dubbing right there is going to help with adding the tail fibers here. So I'm going to use these little micro tippet tail fibers, and I'm going to separate out, if I can get them, separate out 4 fibers. You can use more or less if you want, but I like 4, 2 on both sides. You can do my tail fibers for this little mayfly. And take those 4 fibers, I'm going to lay it on here. Tail should be about as long as the hook shank. And when I have it where I want it, I'm going to tie it down. Now you'll notice, tie it down right close to that tuft of dubbing. What that does is that dubbing helps separate the tail fibers a little bit so that I can flare them to each side of the hook. And it's just a little trick that helps you get those tail fibers clumped together, and so that they split a little bit, just like on a mayfly. Once I get that a little better here, I'll turn it so you can see it. Okay, now I turn this. Hopefully you'll be able to see it. There. So that's what we're going for there. It's just those split tail fibers. Okay, now that I've got those fastened, I'm going to take my thread up to the front here, wrapping the tippets a little bit. Snip them off. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my CDC puffs and just grab one of them, just one. Nice thing about these CDC puffs is they stay dry. They wick the moisture off of them, so they make for a good dry fly, as long as it's a small fly, of course. And tie that in just like I would if it was being tied as almost like a parachute. I'm going to tie that in right there. I'm going to pull the front up, get a few wraps in front just to bring that CDC puff so that it stands up a little bit. And then on the back, I'm going to snip the back with my scissors at a bit of an angle, just like that. The reason for that is that tapered cut right there. Now I can take my thread and I will slowly wrap back, and as I do that, it's going to collect and gather all of that CDC puff, but it also gives the fly that nice tapered body that we're going for. Once I get to the back here, now we got to put some dubbing on. So my dubbing is a kind of a pale yellow dubbing, and I'm going to wrap that on here. Doesn't take much. Again, remember, this is a size 18 fly, so it doesn't require a lot of dubbing. Okay, as I get that on like that, I'm going to slide it up, slide my dubbing up the thread, up to the hook, and then we're going to basically do a dubbing loop here. So I'm going to take my thread, I'm going to hold on to it with my left hand here. You can kind of see it, it's blurry, but I'm going to wrap over my thread, and it gives me that loop right there. With that loop, I'm going to take my hackle pliers and now I've got them. Take my thread, wrap it to the front, and with my hackle pliers, I'm going to twist these things. Just going to spin them. Now, if you watch the dubbing on the video, you see how it's starting to spin, 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 spin. It's twisting, and what it's doing there is it's gathering that dubbing inside the wraps, and it helps for making that dubbing a little tighter. And when I go to wrap this, what it does is it gives that body a little bit of a ribbed look, like a mayfly has, because the dubbing is wrapped that tightly. Really gives the fly a nice look. And I'm just wrapping my way up towards the front. Takes a while, because it's almost like just wrapping thread at this point with a little bit of dubbing on it, but it really will give it a nice look. You'd think for a small fly that this would be a quick tie, but it actually ends up taking a little bit of time because of the, I guess I would say, the delicacy with which you have to tie. Okay, once I get to the front up there, I don't want to bend that CDC over anymore, so now I'm just going to wrap in front of it. And I try to give it a little bit more, a couple more wraps up in the front. Just kind of give that fly a good little head, as much as I can anyway. Come on, one more wrap. There we go. Now we're going to tie it off. Okay, I can snip this extra dubbing. Step is going to be to whip finish this fly. All right. All right, there it is. Little CDC PMD. Smaller fly, usually fished on, I would say, tail waters, definitely in the summertime. In fact, if you tune in to Phelps on the Fly, that is another YouTube channel, he will be fishing with these flies, and you should be able to see him catching some fish on it. So tune in. I'll add a link to his channel at the end of this video, but he'll be fishing with this PMD right here.